So 1 Peter is a letter written to the church, the early church, and if we were to say what is the overarching theme of this letter, we would say this. It is about the people of God the early church in this context was made up of some Jews and also some Gentile converts, these followers of Christ together, redefining and reshifting, re-understanding, forming a new way of what it means to be the people of God together and how that would impact the way they did life together and then how that would impact the way they were involved in society together. So it's this reorganization, this reshifting. I think in your notes I have put the reconstituted family of God. Basically that's a reorganizing, a refashioning and forming of the people of God. So that's what's happening here. Let me do this. So under this understanding of the early church there, we have identity. So we have people who Peter is writing to, and he's trying to help them understand who they are as people and as a collective spiritual community. So if we just think of identity straight out, we can think of, and let me just say I'm terrible penmanship, terrible spelling, no emails this week if I get it wrong, okay? But think about identity. What are some of those factors that form identity? I'll get a few, and if you have some, just shout them out. But our environment, Ron meant, how about our geography? Or we can even say the kingdom we're a part of or the government that we're under, so where we live, what that's all about. We can say our family. Any ideas out there? What shapes and forms identity? Gender. Good. How about what we do, what we're good at? You know, you could be an amazing athlete and be like, hey, that guy's the hockey player, that girl's the soccer player. So something that they're maybe good at forms and shapes part of their identity. All these kind of things. We could say culture. So all these things, yes, they play into our identity, and that's not good or bad. It's just a fact. That shapes us. But what Peter's saying to the early church, he's saying, we actually need to refashion your source of identity and meaning, and it needs to come first and foremost through Jesus. So he's saying this to the early church, and he's writing this. So if you're looking for the theme, this is the biggest connection that he's trying to point out to the early church, is first and foremost, your identity needs to be rooted in Christ. This is then going to form, identify, and fashion who you are as people, as individuals, but also as a spiritual community. And then, of course, that will then impact your earthly relationships, how you work, what you do, the culture you're a part of, the society, your neighborhoods, all those things. But he's saying, first and foremost, this has to be our strongest tie. So 1 Peter chapter 2, let's look at this together. Only verse 9 is what we're going to look at together. Here's what it says. He uses some interesting titles to describe the church. He says, but you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people belonging to God, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his glorious light. So let's just take note of these here together, just so we can see it, what he's saying. So chosen people, royal priesthood, a holy nation. You should have all these in your notes, just captured there for you. And then we'll just say people belonging to God. Depending on the translation you have, this could say special treasure, special possession of God's. Depending on your translation, I have NIV here this morning. But those are the different terms he uses to describe the church. And he's kind of using those as identifiers, as names for the people. Each of these titles, chosen people, royal priest, holy nation, people of God, all of them have echoes back to the early covenant and the nation and the identity of the nation of Israel. They would all have been rooted in that. So, chosen people, people of God, would have been echoing back to Genesis chapter 12 and 15, where God establishes the covenant with Abraham, forms a special bond that through Abraham and his descendants, they will be a chosen people, a special relationship with God, which in turn will be a blessing to the people around them. So people would have recognized that. The Jewish people now coming out of Judaism who are now following Jesus would have immediately picked that up. And even the Gentiles who are now following Jesus would have been aware and understood that. And it's interesting the shift that happens. Instead of this covenant only being with one family and bloodline, it's now being opened wide up through Jesus to be everyone. So everyone's being called these names that were used to be associated with just one group. A royal priesthood, echoing back to the priestly order, these folks who acted as mediators between the nation and God and bringing things back to rights. He's saying, actually, you guys are all a part of that. You have a task to do. You're a royal priesthood to share this message of Jesus with those you're a part of. This is an active thing. It's not passive. A holy nation. You're set apart. You are chosen. and you're required to be on mission together. This is not a thing where you just sit back, but he's using all these descriptors and transforming their understanding of what it means to be a Christian and follow Christ, saying, first and foremost, you're rooted in Jesus, but all these things are descriptors that form your identity. So it's this big shift for people, Peter's helping them understand who they are in Christ, and then how that impacts them as a family, a spiritual family and community, and then what that means to those around them.